very mixed feelings about cities. So there's a thing I like to say which might even be true, which is that the fundamental nature of a city is risk. Basically what happens is you get so many people and so much wealth and so much stuff concentrated together that you increase the exposure to positive risk. Chance association, serendipity, is another word for this positive form of risk. In Nassim Taleb terms, you might even call it anti-fragile. Basically, it's the chance meetings, it's the new friends, it's the introduction to new cultures and new restaurants and all this stuff working together, easy business contacts, easy to meet with new people. You know, there's some real advantages to all of this potential. On the other hand, I get really nervous about the negative side of the risk inherent in a city. I mean, what could be, on the positive end, an infinite supply of new friends and people to meet could also be an infinite supply of stranger danger. At the same time, the concentration of people that allows for all this association is also a way to spread disease really fast. I mean, it sounds super doom and gloom, and maybe there's a part of my personality that just is this way, but, you know, I can't help but notice that the more concentrated something is, the more of a target it is. In addition to that, the raw concentration of human beings, I find, tends to rub rights against each other. The nature of rights, in my view, is always a matter of a competition between rights. Rights trump each other. For example, I have a right to life, so does the burglar who tries to break into my home and is holding a knife against my daughter's throat. My right to life and my right to defend my daughter trump his, and I mean, rights conflict. A better and less violent example would be my right to do whatever I want with my property conflicts with my neighbor's right to get a decent night's sleep at 2 in the morning. So maybe I shouldn't play the heavy metal then. Basically speaking, that conflict of rights, particularly like a noise sort of conflict of rights, you know, if I lived in the middle of the country and had a half a mile between me and my nearest neighbor, the type of noise that I could get away with without stepping on anyone else's toes or interfering with anyone else's rights is extremely high. But let's say we move closer together, maybe I can make a little less noise in a few less hours. And then as soon as we get to the paper-thin walls section, then our rights are rubbing up against each other all the time and conflicting with each other in ways that, you know, kind of irritate me. So basically that's my thought, is a city is built on risk, positive and negative. And I don't think you can extricate those from each other. In addition to that, there's the rubbing of rights, because people are so compressed together that I worry that rights in a way get eroded by the constant high-intensity contact with other human beings. Am I a little antisocial? Probably.
So Joseph tends to be, I think, slightly more pessimistic about the value of cities. Now, I share a lot of those pessimisms. I happen to grow up in a suburban neighborhood outside of a city, and in front of me was an empty field, and to the left of me was an empty field, and to the right of me was an empty field, and behind me was an empty field. So although I grew up in a suburban area, the immediate area around my house was semi-rural. That said, I find cities to be fascinating, attractive, and valuable, and worth looking into and worthy of mastery. Particularly as Joseph and I have visited a few different cities on our Europe tour, I've had quite a few thoughts about the potential value of cities. One is that everything is easily accessible by foot, or almost everything is easily accessible by foot. And that means that whatever it is you need, whether you need food, or a company, or something to learn from, or something to entertain yourself with, is going to be available on foot. Whereas if you live in a very rural area, you're pretty much going to have to get into a car in order to go anywhere or do anything. Another thing I've thought about is that if I had young elementary or middle school age kids, I would love to just take them to the many museums that tend to be in large cities and just cut them loose. And we would wander around the exhibits and they could learn tons of stuff, and then I would just say, hey, at the end of the day, produce for me a one-page summary of what you learned today. The opportunities in general are totally unrivaled. You're likely to have multiple opera houses, multiple museums of various kinds, science museums, art museums, history museums, all kinds of museums. You're liable to have multiple parks. You're liable to have all kinds of resources available to you. Another thing I think about when I think about the potential virtues of cities is the amazing fact that millions of people can live together in a small space and not kill each other. I'm constantly amazed, not only when I'm in large cities, but also really when I'm in smaller areas as well, that I can go around and buy things from and talk to and walk past an incredible diversity of human beings. People who I have never met, people who I may not have that much in common with, and we can coexist peacefully. That is amazing.
So those were all really positive, and I get all of those. I'm going to become an extreme, hyper-crazy pessimist for about 30 seconds, so please bear with me. Potential downsides of concentrating so many human beings. Diseases. We haven't had any major pandemics, not really. I mean, we've had a couple of ones that almost got there, but the last major one we had was in 1918, and there's no particularly good reason for that. Antibiotics take care of all the bacterial ones, not the viral ones. So there's no particular reason why having massive numbers of people associating and free traveling all over the place might not spell the end of civilization as we know it. In addition to that, the concentration of people makes a risk for terrorism and for war. I mean, big concentrated masses of humans make really good targets. Another thing that, as far as pessimism goes, is the fact that cities require supply lines. My hometown of Salt Lake City requires, you know, a couple of highways and a railroad line in order to keep it in food day by day. And, you know, that could be disrupted. So, I mean, there's that. I'm struck too by the fact that cities work at all. That's amazing. I, like Joseph, am incredibly struck by the fact that this thing works. That we have cities, massive groups of people all over the planet, incredibly diverse groups of people, and we're managing to make it work successfully. Long supply lines and everything. That's amazing, but maybe I just think it's more fragile than Joseph does.
Here's a question. To what degree is your dislike of cities a personal preference, and to what degree is it a criticism that should be shared by all others?
That is a good question. Personally, three things that are incredibly important to me that make cities kind of a no-go. I have blacksmithing / other noisy projects that require, you know, smoke and fumes and scrap bits of iron laying around my property, that sort of thing, and having property to put scrap bits of iron on. That's important to me. Another thing, I really want to grow all my own food someday. That's an ambition that is so deeply rooted into my psyche that it's never coming loose without removing large portions of who and what I am. And I can't really do that in an apartment building. So, you know, space is something that I will eventually need. So, I mean, both of those are incredibly personal. I don't know how generalizable they are or have to be, but, you know, it's something to think about. Thoughts on cities? You know, we've been discussing cities while walking around London, but we'd love to hear what you guys think. Please write in the comments section below and tell us what you think. Are cities good? Are they bad? Are there things that we missed? Both on the good side and on the bad side. What is this thing? And if they're good, are they good for you, or are they good for everybody? And if they're bad, are they bad for you, or are they bad for everybody? Cities. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you're interested in hearing more content like this, then please hit the subscribe button below. As always, we thank you for watching and look forward to seeing you next time.